We've got some new information about why Ubisoft decided to delay Assassin's Creed Shadows from its originally planned November release date all the way to Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025, delaying it 3 months. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. And this new rumor claims that the game was simply delayed because it is buggy. So before we get to that, let's go over what Ubisoft said was why they delayed it. They delayed it in a press release announcing their updated financial targets for the 2024-25 fiscal year, which they were decreasing their expected revenues significantly for the year. But this is what they announced regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows. They said Assassin's Creed Shadows will now be released on February 14, 2025. While the game is feature complete, the learnings from the Star Wars Outlaws release led us to provide additional time to further polish the title. This will enable the biggest entry in the franchise to fully deliver on its ambition, notably by fulfilling the promise of our dual protagonist adventure, with Naui and Yasuke bringing two very different gameplay styles. So that is what they had to say there. They also said we are departing from the traditional season pass model. All players will be able to enjoy the game at the same time on February 14, and those who pre-order the game will be granted the first expansion for free. The game will mark the return for our new releases on Steam day one. So obviously gives them time to get the PC release ready for Steam. And then obviously talking about polishing the game. That is what they are saying why they delayed it. But we got this new rumor here from a Brazilian YouTuber TVPH who claims that he spoke with people inside at Ubisoft and they informed him that the reason the game was delayed is because it was just simply buggy. And this is what he has to say. I did use Google's auto translate function in the closed captions to translate this, but this is what he said. The problem that is going on inside is a very simple one. The game is buggy, which is something that is traditional to the Assassin's Creed series, right? Especially when they are making this transition and internal technology. Assassin's Creed Unity was very dramatic. Assassin's Creed Origins also had a lot of problems at the time of launch. So he's pointing to that. This is something that has been consistent to the Assassin's Creed franchise. And he goes on and says this is the case with Shadows as well. Says, and Assassin's Creed Shadows also offers a change of internal technology within the game that was most likely causing these bugs. So it's not a completely new thing, right? A buggy launch of Assassin's Creed. But there's a very marked difference in the days of Unity. In the days of Origins, Ubisoft was safer. Ubisoft was calm. But in September 2024, which we're still in, Ubisoft had just launched and seen Star Wars Outlaws flop. It actually launched at the very end of August, which was a game that they expected would completely explode into being one of the biggest titles of the year. That's absolutely right. They said they had lots of positive excitement. They spent the largest marketing budget the company ever had. They were flying people out to Disneyland. They were schmoozing with influencers, expecting them to really sell the game, and that did not happen. They had to decrease their expected revenues for the second quarter, which Star Wars Outlaws released in, by 30% from 500 million euros to between 350 and 370. An absolute failure. That is an absolute failure. And from the looks of it, it sold just okay. I think it sold worse than that. I think this game had bad sales. It sold like the least a Star Wars game should sell when there's no public interest in it, right? Yeah, he's kind of saying like it sold okay, but then he goes on and says that the sales are absolutely terrible. And part of the problem was that the game was completely bugged at launch. It absolutely was. I made a number of videos documenting all of these bugs. There's stormtroopers literally shooting into the side of a wall. It was absolutely terrible. K-Vest hits a rock and just like launches up into the air and starts flailing around in the middle of the air instead of like going flying forward with the physics and everything like that. It was a complete and utter disaster. There's I think my favorite video is the guy's like hyping it up. He was clearly getting paid by Ubisoft. He's hyping up this game, and then riding on the speeder bike, K-Vest just like falls through the entire world, and he's just like, "Are you kidding me?" And then he's like, just shuts it off. That was just absolute classic right there. So yeah, the game was completely bugged. They're still trying. There's people that are still showing all of these bugs. I mean, I think Asmongold had one where he was literally just like crouching in like the stealth zone, and there's like 20 stormtroopers lined up just shooting at the zone, but they don't actually see the character. I mean, the AI targeting was absolutely awful. There's scenes where you're just like literally like sliding through the game. We even saw that in their environmental clip that they released to showcase how great the environment was for Assassin's Creed Shadows. There's like a horse that literally like just slides through the game instead of what like a horse would actually walk. It looked absolutely terrible, and that was something that they were showcasing. So we know that they had those bugs in Assassin's Creed Shadows as well. So I do agree that this game was bugged, but I think there might be a little bit more to this. But he went on and said this: Ubisoft even had to apologize to the fans and promised that they were working on urgent fixes for performance problems on all platforms. That literally coincided with the press statement that we got and the information that we got saying that this game, they were declining. They decreased their revenue expectations by 30%. So that is, they're trying to basically salvage everything they can to try and capitalize on sales coming up with Christmas, Black Friday, etc. But I think people have already made their decisions and are unlikely to purchase this game. Likely we'll see people purchase Space Marine 2, Black Myth Wukong. I think those are the games that people will go out and purchase because those are the successful games that people have already liked and they have really good word of mouth, whereas Star Wars Outlaws has absolutely terrible word of mouth. So, and as I said, I think there is a little bit more to this. I think he's probably right that the game is extremely buggy. Like I said, we saw the horse gliding through on that big promotional trailer that they recently released for the game. But I do think there's a little bit more to this, and I think Valiant Renegade kind of hits on this in one of his more recent videos. He speculates the delay has to do with the company attempting to break even before the end of its fiscal year. And obviously, I think there's a little bit more to even what he says, but let's listen to what he says here, or I'll read it to you. Once Ubisoft canceled their worldwide press events, even pulling out of the massive Tokyo Game Show, the writing was on the wall that Assassin's Creed Shadows was going to get pushed back. Ubisoft obviously saw what was coming, and that was likely a serious underperformance of sales upon the game's initial release date target of November 15th. I think he's absolutely 100% right on this. I think that the backlash against this game was so significant that the sales were underperforming. We saw this with the PlayStation Store. If you looked at it, it was not doing well. It was way below games like Dragon Ball. You could see the Dragon Ball was absolutely dominating it. It was even on par with kind of like Dragon Age and things like that. And you know that those sales weren't really, I don't think those sales are really good for that game either. So it might have been like on that first page of the PlayStation Store sales, but it was at the bottom. And even then, it didn't look good on there because like the games it was around looked like they were not games that you would think were beyond the top. Because even if you look and you can see where Dragon Age is on Steam, and then you can kind of compare, and that the Dragon Age on Steam isn't really good. So you knew that the Assassin's Creed numbers, even on the PlayStation Store, had to be pretty low. So I think Valiant is 100% on point with this. I think they saw that these pre-order sales were bad. They had probably predictions from retailers that sales were going bad. We saw that rumor from Craig Skistimas over from the Side Scrollers podcast, indicating that a retail source told him that sales were really low for the game. So I think they saw that, and I think that they tried to delay to try and maybe put some distance between them and all of the negative feedback that they were getting, and even put some distance between the negative feedback they were getting from Star Wars Outlaws as well, and that could potentially cannibalize sales, because I think those two games are extremely similar despite being different IP. And so then Valiant goes on and says this: Ubisoft says the next 90 days will afford them to polish the game, but they also seem desperate to release it before the end of their fiscal year on March 31st, 2025, as profitability guidance has concurrently been adjusted down, with the game maker basically hoping to just maybe break even on the year. He then concluded saying it's a total mess right now. So I think there is a lot of truth to what Valiant is saying here. Obviously, I think they saw that those sales did not look good, so they were trying to delay it, thinking that they could get away from all the bad press that they were receiving. But they couldn't delay it past March 31st because they have to actually break even with their fiscal year. And in order to do that, they do have to release it before that. They can't probably release it next year, which I think is probably what they would have wanted to do, something similar to what we saw with the Walt Disney Company and delaying Snow White an entire year with that film, trying to get away from the bad press and basically redo that film. I don't think that this gives Ubisoft enough time to do that. It's probably what they need to do. They need to just go back to the drawing board and rework this game over. But obviously that increases your costs and then makes your margins a lot lower, if not almost impossible to cover. So they're kind of in a pickle because they chose this path. But I think there's just a lot more to this than just the game being buggy. I think a lot of it does have to do with the sales being really bad, the backlash that this game has received, and the fact that Ubisoft has cranked out 5 absolute losers in the past year. When you're looking at the Pandora game, you're looking at X Defiant, which they're now admitting that they're behind expectations on that game as well. You look at Star Wars Outlaws, you look at Skull and Bones, and then obviously Shadows here looking like it's going to be a loser as well. But let me know what you guys make of this latest rumor that the game is a buggy mess. I think that we've seen enough evidence that that is true. But it is interesting that that is what we are hearing from inside Ubisoft, at least from the so-called insiders from Brazilian YouTuber TVPH. Let me know what you guys make of this in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.